So here I am in the New Forest, and well, we're on a retreat day, and it's raining. And this morning we had a word from 1 Kings 19 explained to us by Ian Coffey, and I've stopped here by this bush because it's just kind of reminded me a bit about the story. By the way, it's chucking it down, and so this will be quite brief, and sorry about any rain on the lens, but there you go, needs must. Anyway, so here I am, I'm standing in the rain by this bush in the middle of the New Forest, and it just kind of reminds me of this story that I heard this morning, and I've kind of been reflecting on that. And it's the story of Elijah, who Elijah has had this huge contest really against the prophets of Baal, who've been appointed by Ahab and Jezebel, and basically he's come out on top, but he's had this huge physical battle, he's had this spiritual battle, and he's just exhausted. And then Jezebel has basically sent him a message to say, well, I'm going to hunt you down and I'm going to kill you. And he flees for his life into the desert, and he's just at the end of his tether, he's at the end of his road, and he's had enough. He's just had enough. And so he sits down under this bush and he says to God, just take me now, I've had enough, I'd just rather die. And something that Ian said really struck with me, this idea that Elijah felt that he was all on his own. He talked about something called the Elijah syndrome, about someone who feels that, everybody else has deserted him, and that he was the only faithful one remaining. But if we read on, we find that the Lord reminds him that he's kept 7,000 other faithful people. And over the last couple of years, I felt that my own ministry between Pioneer and the Methodist Church has been one where this bridge that I'm supposed to be being between two organisations has become more and more difficult and impossible to do, because these organisations seem to be growing further apart, and that all of that initial excitement and interest that we had, and the battles that we were winning, and the ground that we had gained was gradually being lost, and it was petering away. And there's something in this story that reminds us of God's provision, that even in these testing times, God retains a remnant. There is always a remnant of the faithful that the Lord keeps about us, and the Lord is there to provide for us. He provides sustenance when we need it. When Elijah wakes under this bush, he smells this lovely smell of freshly baked bread, and the Lord feeds him and provides him water to drink, and there is this cycle that he goes round of rest and food and drink and nourishment and sleep and rest and food and nourishment to prepare him for the next stage of his journey. And so today's been a reminder that really the journey hasn't ended. Maybe I've been sat under a bush, and maybe the Lord is calling me to get up and travel the next stage.